I didn't need a girlfriend. I needed peace. At 70, after 43 years of organizing dusty books and shushing college students in Minnesota, I'd earned my quiet. The morning I stepped off that plane in Bangkok, breathing in the humid air that felt like freedom, I knew I was done with complications. No more drama, I whispered to myself as I caught the bus north to Chiang Rai. Just me, my garden, and the silence. She told me I was the only man who ever treated her with respect. Those words hit me like a sledgehammer to the chest. Standing there in my little kitchen, watching Duang Jai's eyes fill with tears as she spoke about her ex-boyfriend's cruelty, I felt something crack open inside me. He never listened to me, Kun Clinton, she whispered, her voice breaking. But you see me. I reached for my wallet without thinking. But every time I opened my wallet, she opened her heart a little more. Each bill I handed her came with another story, another smile, another gentle touch on my arm that made me feel needed again. I didn't realize I was paying to be loved until the day I said no. That morning when she asked for money to fix her motorcycle, something in her eyes went cold when I hesitated. The warmth vanished like smoke. The woman who called me family just hours before suddenly looked at me like I was a stranger. That's when it hit me. I wasn't her salvation. I was her business plan. I wasn't going to share this story tonight. But then, an email landed in my inbox from a longtime viewer of this channel. He told me he'd been following along for months, never commenting, just listening in silence until he finally felt ready to share his own heartbreak. His words shook me. At first I felt a pang of recognition, like hearing an echo of my own past. Then came anger, not at him but at the cruel pattern so many of us fall into. And finally, there was a kind of quiet sadness, because I knew exactly how his heart must feel in this moment. That email pulled me back here. And before I go further, I want to say thank you. To every one of you watching right now, drop a comment and let me know where you're tuning in from. I love seeing those messages from around the world. And for those of you who keep coming back, video after video, you deserve a super thank you. You're the reason I keep opening up. Please like this video, subscribe if you haven't already, and join the conversation below. Because tonight, I'm ready to tell you everything. Let me take you back to where it all started. The water from my hose catches the morning light as it falls across the orchid petals. Purple and white blooms hang heavy in the humid air, and for once in my 70 years, I feel exactly where I'm supposed to be. The birds here sound different than they did back in Minnesota. Sharper, more alive. Even the silence between their songs feels fuller somehow. Sawadee-ka, Kun Clinton. Her voice drifts across the garden like music I didn't know I was waiting to hear. I turn, and there she is. Duang Jai, carrying a small basket of eggs, her dark hair pulled back in that same simple way she's worn it every week for the past 5 months. She's 32, though her face carries the kind of weariness that makes her seem both younger and older at the same time. Morning, Duang Jai, I say, setting down the hose. How's your mother feeling? Better, she nods. Though her smile doesn't quite reach her eyes, I bring eggs from village, very fresh. She holds up the basket, and I notice her hands are rougher than they should be for someone so young. Working hands. Honest hands. At least, that's what I tell myself as I watch her approach the front door of my small rented house. 5 months ago, I hired her through my neighbor, Mrs. Sriwan. She need work. Mrs. Sriwan had said. Good girl, hard worker, clean everything very good. I wasn't looking for conversation or companionship. I just needed someone to handle the house while I focused on my garden and my books. Simple arrangement, clean transaction. But Duang Jai has this way of moving through the house that feels more like dancing than working. She hums while she scrubs the floors. She arranges my books in ways that somehow make more sense than my old librarian system. And when she laughs at my terrible attempts at Thai phrases, the sound fills spaces in my chest I forgot were empty. You water flower every day, she observes, following me toward the orchids. In village, my grandmother say orchid like shy woman. Too much attention, she die. Not enough, she die too. Sounds like women in general, I joke, immediately regretting it. What kind of thing is that to say to someone you barely know? But Duang Jai laughs. Actually laughs. Not the polite giggle I usually get when I try to be funny. A real laugh that starts in her belly and works its way up. You funny, Kun Clinton. Thai man never make joke like this. Something shifts in that moment. Something small but unmistakable, like the first crack in ice before it breaks completely. I've spent the last 8 months in this country avoiding exactly this kind of moment. The kind where loneliness disguises itself as connection. The kind where a 70-year-old fool starts thinking he might have something to offer besides money. I should go inside, she says, but she doesn't move. House not clean itself. Of course. I turn back to the orchids, but I can feel her watching me. I'll be out here if you need anything. Coon Clinton? Her voice is softer now, almost uncertain. You live here alone long time? The question hangs in the air between us like morning mist. I know what she's really asking. Not about time. About choice. About whether this solitude is freedom or just another kind of prison. Long enough, I answer, not looking at her. Long enough to know I like the quiet. She nods, but something in her expression suggests she doesn't believe me. Maybe because I don't believe it myself anymore. Not since she started showing up every Thursday morning with fresh eggs and stories about her village and that laugh that makes my empty house feel less like a tomb. I hear the front door close behind her, and suddenly the garden feels too quiet again. The birds sound harsh now, demanding. Even the orchids seem to droop a little, as if they know something has changed and they don't approve. I pick up the hose and continue watering, but my mind keeps drifting back to that laugh. To the way she said shy woman like she was talking about herself. To the roughness of her hands and the weariness in her eyes, and the way she looked at my empty house like she understood something about loneliness that I've been trying to ignore. By the time she finishes cleaning and comes back outside, I've watered the same orchid 3 times. I'll finish, she announces, but she doesn't head for the gate. Instead, she lingers by the garden, watching me tend to the flowers with the kind of attention that makes me self-conscious. They're beautiful, she says finally. You take care very good. They're easier than people, I reply without thinking. She's quiet for so long I start to wonder if I've offended her. But when I look up, she's not angry. She's sad. The kind of sad that sits heavy in your shoulders and makes you look older than you are. Sometimes people need take care too, she says softly, even when they no ask. And there it is. The moment I should have recognized as the beginning of the end. The moment a lonely old man should have nodded politely and paid her for the cleaning and sent her on her way. Instead, I set down the hose and really look at her, at the way she holds herself like she's used to disappointment, at the way she studies my orchids like she's memorizing something beautiful she might never see again. Would you like some tea? The words come out before I can stop them. I was about to make some anyway. Her face lights up in a way that makes my chest tight. Yes, please. I like very much. As we walk toward the house together, I tell myself this is just kindness, just 2 people sharing tea on a Thursday morning in northern Thailand. Nothing more complicated than that. But deep down, in the part of me that spent 43 years arranging other people's stories while living none of my own, I already know better. I already know that some cracks, once started, don't stop spreading until everything falls apart. The first time I saw Duang Jai, she was standing at my gate like a bird ready to fly away at the first loud noise. Mrs. Sriwan had brought her over on a Tuesday morning 6 months ago, speaking rapid Thai while gesturing toward my house. I caught maybe half of what she said, but the important parts came through clear enough. This is Duang Jai, Mrs. Sriwan announced in English. She clean house very good, very honest. You try one time, okay? Duang Jai kept her eyes down, hands folded in front of her simple blue shirt. When she finally looked up at me, I saw something I recognized from my years working with shy students. Fear mixed with desperate hope, the look of someone who needs this chance more than they want to admit. How much? I asked Mrs. Sriwan, though I was watching Duangjai's reaction. 1,000 baht per week, Mrs. Sriwan replied. She come Thursday morning, clean everything, finish by afternoon. About $30. I'd spent more than that on a single lunch back in Minneapolis. Fine, I said, reaching for my wallet. But Duang Jai shook her head quickly. No money now, she said in careful English. Work first, you see if good, then pay. That should have been my first clue. Most people want payment up front, especially when they're desperate. But Duang Jai wanted to prove herself first. She wanted me to trust her before she asked me to trust her. Okay, I agreed. Thursday morning then. She nodded and followed Mrs. Sriwan back down the street, but not before turning to give me a small bow that felt more genuine than any handshake I'd gotten in years. That first Thursday, she arrived exactly at 8 a.m. carrying a small bag of cleaning supplies and wearing the same blue shirt. No makeup, no jewelry, just clean hands and determined eyes. She worked like she was trying to erase every speck of dust from existence. By noon, my house looked better than it had since I moved in. All finish, she announced, standing in my doorway with sweat beading on her forehead. I handed her the 1,000 baht, expecting her to leave. Instead, she lingered by the door, looking like she wanted to say something but couldn't find the words. Good work, I said, hoping to fill the awkward silence. Thank you, Kun Clinton. She paused, then added quietly, Your house very nice. You live here long time? About 2 months now. I found myself actually wanting to continue the conversation. I'm still getting used to everything. You from America, yes? Mrs. Sriwan say you work in university. Retired now. I was a librarian for most of my life. Her face brightened with something I didn't expect. You love books? I love books too, but not have money for buy. Something in the way she said it, wistful but not bitter, made me want to show her my collection. Would you like to see some? I brought quite a few with me. She glanced at the money in her hand, then back at me. Maybe little bit okay? That was how it started. 15 minutes turned into an hour as she carefully examined my books, running her fingers along the spines like they were precious artifacts. She couldn't read most of them, but she understood their weight, their importance. When she picked up my copy of To Kill a Mockingbird, she held it like it might break. This one I hear about, she said softly. Very famous, yes? Very famous. And very important. I watched her flip through the pages with reverence. I could find a Thai translation if you'd like to read it. The look she gave me then was pure gratitude mixed with something deeper. Something that made me feel useful in a way I hadn't felt since leaving my job. You really do this for me? Of course. Books should be shared. The next Thursday, she stayed for tea after finishing the cleaning. The Thursday after that, she brought homemade som tam that we ate together on my back porch. By the 5th week, she was arriving earlier and leaving later, and I was finding reasons to be around the house when she came. I told myself it was practical. She was good company, and I was retired with nothing but time. What harm could it do to have someone to talk to once a week? But the truth was simpler and more dangerous than that. Duang Jai listened to me in a way no one had in years. When I told her about my students back in Minnesota, she asked follow-up questions. When I complained about the heat, she showed me how to make Thai iced tea that actually helped. When I admitted I sometimes felt lost in this new country, she nodded like she understood exactly what I meant. Moving to new place always hard, she said one afternoon as we sat among my orchids. Even when you choose to move, part of heart always stay in old place. You sound like you know about leaving places behind. Her smile turned sad. I leave my village when I 18, come to city for work, send money to family. Sometimes I miss village so much, but cannot go back. Village life too hard now. Do you have family here? In Chiang Rai? Only work family. People I clean for, people I know from market. Not same as real family, but... She shrugged. Make life less lonely. That word hung between us like a confession neither of us meant to make. Lonely. The thing we were both running from in our own ways. I understand, I said, and I meant it. You miss your family in America? The question caught me off guard, probably because it assumed I had family to miss. I never married, no children, just me and my books mostly. She studied my face with the kind of attention that made me want to look away. That why you come here? To find new family? I came here to find peace, I said, but even as I said it, I wondered if that was still true. Maybe can find both, she said softly. Peace and family. No have to choose only one. She stayed until sunset that day, helping me water the orchids and teaching me Thai words for different flowers. When she finally gathered her things to leave, I realized I'd been dreading Thursday mornings less and looking forward to them more. See you next week, Kun Clinton, she called from the gate. See you next week, I replied, already counting the days. Standing in my garden as she disappeared down the street, I tried to convince myself this was still just a cleaning arrangement. That the money I paid her was for housework, nothing more. That the growing warmth in my chest when I saw her smile was just gratitude for good service. But as I watched the sun set over Chiang Rai, painting everything golden and soft, I knew I was lying to myself. Duang Jai wasn't just cleaning my house anymore. She was filling spaces in my life I'd forgotten were empty. And for the first time in months, the thought of being alone in this beautiful, quiet place felt less like freedom and more like something I wanted to escape. Kun Clinton, you never tell me about your life before Thailand. Duang Jai's voice drifts across my living room as she arranges fresh flowers in the vase I bought specifically because she mentioned liking jasmine. It's been 3 months now since she started staying after work, and somewhere along the way, the formality in her voice when she says my name shifted from professional distance to something warmer, something that sounds almost like affection. Not much to tell, I say from my chair, watching her delicate hands position each stem with the same care she brings to everything in my house. 43 years of the same routine. Wake up, catalog books, help students find what they need, go home to an empty apartment. But you must have friends, people who miss you. I consider lying, making my old life sound fuller than it was. But something about the way she asks, genuinely curious rather than politely interested, makes me want to tell the truth. A few colleagues. We'd have lunch sometimes, complain about budget cuts and difficult students. But real friends? I shake my head. I was always better with books than people. She turns from the flowers to look at me, and there's something in her expression I can't quite read. Pity, maybe, or understanding. Books no judge you, she says simply. Books no leave you. Books always same when you come back. Exactly. I'm surprised by how well she gets it. People are complicated. Yes, very complicate. She sits on the edge of my couch, closer than usual. Thai men especially complicate. Always want something from woman but never give something back. The bitterness in her voice catches me off guard. In all our conversations over the past few months, she's never talked much about her own romantic history. I've assumed there must be someone, a woman as kind and beautiful as Duang Jai, doesn't stay single by accident in a country where family is everything. You sound like you're speaking from experience. She's quiet for a long moment, her fingers tracing patterns on the couch cushion. When she speaks again, her voice is barely above a whisper. My ex-boyfriend, he say he loved me very much. But love for him mean I cook, I clean, I give money when he need, I never complain when he come home late or smell like other women. Her voice gets stronger, angry. When I finally say no more, he say I no good Thai woman. Say I too difficult, too demanding. The pain in her words hits me like a physical blow. I've spent so much time thinking about my own loneliness that I never considered hers. Never thought about what it must be like to be a woman in her 30s in a traditional culture, trying to build a life without the security of marriage and family. I'm sorry, I say, and I mean it. He sounds like an ass. She laughs, but it's not her usual bright laugh. This one carries too much hurt. Ass, yes. But many Thai men like this. They want traditional woman who never ask for anything, but also want modern woman who can take care of herself when convenient for them. That's not fair to you. She looks at me then with an expression I've never seen before. Soft and surprised, like I've said something revolutionary instead of just decent. You think so? Really? Of course I think so. You work hard, you're intelligent, you're kind to everyone you meet. Any man would be lucky to have you in his life. The words come out more intense than I intended, and I can feel heat rising in my cheeks. But Duang Jai doesn't seem embarrassed. Instead, she moves closer on the couch, close enough that I can smell the jasmine soap she uses. Kun Clinton, she says softly, you are like no Thai man I ever met. You listen when I talk. You no try to change me or make me be different person. She reaches out and takes my hand, her fingers warm and slightly rough from cleaning. You see me, real me. Her hand in mine feels like crossing a line I didn't know we'd been approaching. It's been so long since anyone touched me with intention, with care, that for a moment I forget how to breathe. Duang Jai, I start to say something about boundaries, about the difference in our ages, about how I'm paying her, and that complicates things. But the words die when I see the tears gathering in her eyes. You have to say nothing, she whispers. Just let me feel safe for a little bit, okay? Just this one time let me sit with someone who no won't hurt me. So, I do. I let her hold my hand while we sit in the warm afternoon light streaming through my windows, listening to the sounds of life continuing outside while something fragile and dangerous grows in the space between us. When she finally lets go and starts gathering her cleaning supplies, I feel the absence of her touch like a physical ache. Thank you, Kun Clinton, she says as she heads toward the door. For listening, for understanding. Anytime. I reply, though I'm not sure what exactly I'm agreeing to. After she leaves, I sit in my chair staring at my hand, still feeling the echo of her fingers wrapped around mine. I tell myself it was just comfort. Just two lonely people offering each other a moment of human connection, nothing more than that. But that night, I find myself wondering what it would be like to hold her hand, not just for comfort, but for connection. To have someone who looks forward to seeing me the way I've started looking forward to seeing her. To build something real with another person instead of just existing in careful solitude. For the first time since arriving in Thailand, the quiet in my house feels less like peace and more like emptiness waiting to be filled. And the most dangerous part is that I'm starting to think I know exactly what might fill it. Kun Clinton, I'm so sorry to ask, but... Duang Jai's voice trails off as she stands in my kitchen, wringing her hands in that way that's become familiar over the past few weeks. It's been 6 months now since she started working for me, and I've learned to recognize the signs, the hesitation, the downcast eyes, the way she builds up to asking for help like she's approaching a cliff. What's wrong? I ask, though I already know this conversation is heading somewhere that will end with me reaching for my wallet. My niece, she need money for school uniform. Start new term next week, but her mother no have enough. She looks up at me with those eyes that somehow manage to be both hopeful and apologetic at the same time. I know I already asked you for help with my mother medicine last month, but I no have anyone else to ask. The guilt in her voice makes something in my chest tighten. Last month it was medicine for her mother's diabetes. The month before that, bus money to visit her sick aunt in Bangkok. Always family. Always urgent. Always just enough to make saying no feel cruel. How much does she need? I ask, already knowing I'll give it to her regardless of the amount. 2,000 baht. I know is a lot of money, but it's fine, I interrupt, pulling out my wallet. Children need their education. The relief that floods her face is so immediate and genuine that any doubts I might have had dissolve instantly. She takes the money with both hands, bowing slightly in the formal way that always makes me uncomfortable. Thank you, Kun Clinton. You so kind to my family. I pay you back, I promise. Don't worry about paying me back, I say, though this is the 4th time in 2 months I've said those exact words. Just take care of your family. She stays later that afternoon, cooking pad thai for both of us and telling me stories about her niece's dream of becoming a teacher. The way she talks about the girl with such pride and affection makes the money feel like the best investment I've ever made. But as the weeks pass, a pattern emerges that I try not to think about too closely. The stories keep coming, and they all have the same structure. Family member in crisis, immediate need for cash, Duang Jai's genuine distress and gratitude, my relief at being able to help, my cousin's husband leave her. She tells me one Thursday, tears streaming down her face. She have 2 small children, no job, no money for rent. Landlord say she must pay or move out this week. 5,000 baht for rent money. My brother's motorcycle break down. She explains another week, her voice thick with worry. He need for work, drive taxi every day. Without motorcycle, cannot make money for family. 3,000 baht for repairs. My mother need go hospital again, she whispers one morning, showing me a medication bottle with a label I can't read. Doctor say if she no take this medicine, her heart will get worse. 4,000 baht for pills that might keep someone's mother alive. How can I say no to any of it? How can I look at Duang Jai's tears and tell her that her family's problems aren't my responsibility? These aren't luxury purchases or frivolous expenses. These are the basic necessities of life for people who have nothing. And it's not like the money is breaking me. My pension goes further in Thailand than it ever did in Minnesota. The house rent is cheap, food costs almost nothing, and I have more money sitting in my account than I know what to do with. What's a few thousand baht here and there to help people who actually need it? But something starts nagging at me around the 3-month mark of regular emergencies. It's not the money, it's the timing. The way these crises always seem to happen on Thursdays. The way Duang Jai's distress always clears up immediately after I hand over the cash. The way she stays longer and is more affectionate on the days I help her family, but seems distracted and quick to leave when I don't have any problems to solve. You sure give lot of money to that girl. Mrs. Shriwan mentions casually one morning when I run into her at the market. She tell my friend you very generous with her family. She's a good worker, I reply, though something in Mrs. Shriwan's tone makes me defensive. and her family has been going through a rough patch. Mrs. Sriwan nods, but her expression suggests she knows something I don't. Duang Jai always have rough patch, even when she worked for Mr. Hansen before you. Always family problem, always need money. Mr. Hansen? Australian man, live here 2 years ago. He helped Duang Jai family too until... She shrugs. He moved back to Australia very sudden. Say Thailand too expensive for him. A cold feeling settles in my stomach, but I push it away. Every family has problems. Every person deserves help when they need it. Just because Duang Jai has had to ask for help before doesn't mean she's taking advantage of anyone. That afternoon, when she arrives for her usual Thursday cleaning, she seems more subdued than usual. She works quietly, efficiently, but without the usual humming or small talk. When she finishes, she heads straight for the door instead of lingering for tea. "Everything okay?" I ask as she gathers her supplies. She turns back to me with eyes that look tired in a way that has nothing to do with physical exhaustion. "My sister called this morning. Her son need operation on his leg. Born with problem, walk very difficult. Doctors say can fix but cost 40,000 baht. 40,000. More than I've given her for all the other emergencies combined. My instinct is the same as always. Reach for my wallet and solve the problem. But something holds me back. Maybe it's Mrs. Sriwan's warning. Maybe it's the convenient timing. Maybe it's just the sheer size of the request. That's a lot of money, Duang Jai." "I know," she says quickly. "I know expect you to pay all. Maybe just little bit help? I try find money other places too." The desperation in her voice sounds genuine. The tears forming in her eyes look real. But there's something else there too. Something I'm only just starting to recognize. Expectation. Like my help isn't hoped for. It's assumed. "Let me think about it," I say, the words feeling foreign in my mouth. In 6 months of requests, I've never asked for time to think before. Her face changes instantly. The warmth that usually lives there goes cold, replaced by something that looks almost like anger before she catches herself and forces a smile. "Of course, Kun Clinton. I understand. Big money. Need to think carefully." But her voice has the same professional distance it had when she first started working for me. The warmth is gone. She leaves without staying for tea, without asking about my orchids, without any of the small intimacies that have become part of our Thursday routine. And for the first time since she started working for me, I watch her walk down the street and wonder if I really know her at all. That night, I can't stop thinking about Mrs. Sriwan's words, about Mr. Hansen and his sudden departure, about the convenient timing of every crisis, about the way Duang Jai's affection seems to rise and fall with my generosity. I tell myself I'm being paranoid, that loneliness is making me suspicious of the first real connection I've found in this country, that good people sometimes have runs of bad luck, and helping them doesn't make me a fool. But deep down, in the part of me that spent decades watching students try to manipulate their way to better grades, a different voice is starting to speak, a voice that wonders if all those tears were real, if all those family crises were genuine, if the woman I'm falling for sees me as anything more than a lonely old man with money to spare. I push the voice away and try to sleep, but it keeps whispering the same question over and over. What happens when I stop being useful? What happens when the ATM finally says no? My 71st birthday arrives on a Thursday, which feels appropriate since Thursdays have become the highlight of my week. I wake up that morning in my quiet house in Chiang Rai, listening to the familiar sounds of birds and street vendors starting their day, and for the first time since moving to Thailand, I don't feel alone on my birthday. I'm watering the orchids when Duang Jai arrives, but instead of her usual cleaning supplies, she's carrying a covered pot that smells like heaven and hell had a beautiful baby. "Sawadee ka, Kun Clinton," she says, but there's something different in her voice today. Something special. "Happy birthday." I nearly dropped the watering can. "How did you know it was my birthday?" She smiles that smile that makes me feel 20 years younger and 20 times more vulnerable. "I asked Mrs. Sriwan when your birthday. Want to make special day for you. You didn't have to do anything special." "Of course I have to," she says, setting down the pot and taking the watering can from my hands. "You do so many special things for me and my family. Today I take care of you." She cooks for me all morning. Real Thai food, not the tourist versions I've been eating at restaurants. Pad see with perfectly charred noodles. Tom yum soup that makes my sinuses sing. Green curry that's so complex and layered I want to cry from the beauty of it. Where did you learn to cook like this? I ask as she sets plate after plate on my small dining table. My grandmother teach me when I little girl. She say, food is love you can taste. When you cook for someone, you give them part of your heart. The way she says it, simple and matter of fact, makes something catch in my throat. When was the last time someone gave me part of their heart? When was the last time someone cared enough about my existence to cook for me, to remember my birthday, to make me feel like my life mattered to another human being? This is incredible, Duang Jai. Thank you. Wait, she says, disappearing into her bag and returning with a small wrapped package. I have something for you. Inside the wrapping is a framed photograph. The two of us, sitting on my back porch last month, when Mrs. Sriwan stopped by and insisted on taking our picture. I'm holding one of my orchids, explaining something about proper watering technique, and Duang Jai is looking at me with an expression of genuine interest and affection. We look happy. We look like family. I get copy for me too, she says softly. Put on table in my room. When people ask who is old man in picture, I tell them, this my family. The words hit me like a physical blow. Family. This woman, 39 years younger than me, living in a country I'm still learning to navigate, calls me family. She keeps my picture in her room. She cooks for me on my birthday. She gives me part of her heart through food and kindness, and the simple act of remembering that I exist. Duang Jai, I start to say something about how much this means to me, but the words get stuck somewhere between my heart and my mouth. You no have to say nothing, she interrupts gently. Just know that you're not alone anymore. You have me. You have family. That's when I do something I haven't done in years. I cry. Not the quiet, controlled tears of a man who's learned to grieve in private, but the messy, overwhelming sobs of someone who's been holding back an ocean of loneliness and finally found a crack in the dam. Duang Jai doesn't make a big deal of it. She just moves her chair closer to mine and puts her hand on my shoulder while I fall apart in my own dining room, surrounded by the best meal I've had in decades, and the first real kindness I've received in longer than I care to admit. It's okay, she whispers. It's okay to be sad. Sometimes happy feelings and sad feelings come together, like sweet and sour in cooking. When I finally pull myself together, she's still there, still watching me with those eyes that seem to see straight through all my defenses to the lonely old man underneath. I'm sorry, I manage. I didn't mean to. No, sorry, she says firmly. You give me so much help from my family. You listen to my problems. You make my life better every week. If I can give you little bit comfort on your birthday, this make me very happy. That evening, after she's cleaned up from cooking and we've eaten ourselves into food comas, we sit on the back porch watching the sunset paint everything golden. The photo sits on the table between us, and every time I look at it, I feel that same overwhelming combination of gratitude and terror. Duang Jai, I say finally, I want you to know how much these past months have meant to me. Having you in my life, it's changed everything. She takes my hand, the same way she did that first afternoon when everything started shifting between us. You changed my life too, Kun Clinton. Before I meet you, I think maybe I never find someone who see me as real person. Someone who care about my dreams, my family, my heart. You deserve all of that and more. And you deserve family, she says softly. You deserve someone who love you just because you good person, not because they want something from you. The irony of those words will haunt me later, but in the moment, they feel like salvation. Like a promise that I'm not destined to die alone in this beautiful foreign place. There's something I want to give you, I say, surprising myself with the decision even as I make it. I go inside and return with my wallet, pulling out my ATM card. For emergencies. For your family. I trust you completely. Her eyes go wide as she stares at the plastic rectangle in my palm. Kun Clinton, I cannot take this. Too much trust, too much responsibility. Your family, I say, echoing her words from earlier. Family helps family, and I trust you more than I've trusted anyone in years. She takes the card with trembling hands, and for a moment I think she might cry too. You sure about this? Really sure? I'm sure. And I am. Sitting here in the warm Thai evening, looking at this woman who remembered my birthday and cooked for me and calls me family, I've never been more certain of anything in my life. She leans over and kisses my cheek, soft and quick, like a daughter thanking her father. I take care of this very careful. Only for real emergency, I promise. I know you will. That night, after she leaves with my ATM card safely tucked in her purse, I sit in my garden holding the framed photo and feeling like I've finally found what I came to Thailand looking for. Not just peace and quiet, but connection. Purpose. Someone who needs me for more than just money, who values me for more than what I can provide. The orchids seem to approve, blooming more vibrantly in the moonlight. Even they look like they understand that something important has shifted today. That the lonely old librarian from Minnesota finally found his family, 10,000 miles from home, in the hands of a woman who sees his heart instead of just his wallet. I fall asleep that night clutching the photo, dreaming of birthdays to come filled with laughter and homemade food, and the warm certainty that I matter to someone in this world. Tomorrow is Friday, which means 6 whole days until I see Duang Jai again, but for once that feels manageable. Because now I know she's thinking of me too, keeping my picture in her room, carrying my trust in her purse. Family takes care of family. And finally, after 71 years on this earth, I have both. The first Thursday she doesn't show up, I tell myself there's a logical explanation. Family emergency, motorcycle trouble. Maybe she's sick. I water my orchids twice that morning, checking the gate every few minutes like she might materialize if I just look hard enough. By noon, I'm worried enough to walk to Mrs. Sriwan's house. She no come today, Mrs. Sriwan confirms when I ask. Maybe sick, maybe busy with family problem. You know Duang Jai, always family problem. Right, I agree, but something cold is forming in my stomach. I'm sure she'll be here next week. But the second Thursday passes with no word. No text message, no call, no explanation. Just an empty house and orchids that suddenly seem too quiet in the morning light. On Friday, I do something I've never done before. I drive to the ATM. The screen shows my balance, and the world tilts sideways. $12,000. Gone. Not all at once, but in careful increments over the past 3 weeks. 2,000 here. 3,000 there. Never enough to trigger an alert, but steady and methodical, like someone following a plan. I print the receipt with shaking hands and stare at the withdrawals. Bangkok bank locations I've never seen. Times when I was sleeping or tending my garden, believing she was home with her family, probably missing me the way I was missing her. Sir, you okay? The security guard is looking at me with concern. I realize I've been standing at the ATM for 10 minutes, holding a piece of paper that's just destroyed my entire world. Fine, I lie. Just checking my balance. I drive home in a haze, the receipt burning a hole in my pocket. $12,000, not enough to bankrupt me, but enough to sting, enough to matter, enough to make me feel like the biggest fool who ever lived. The third Thursday, I sit in my garden waiting for her anyway. Some pathetic part of me still hopes there's an explanation. Maybe someone stole the card. Maybe she's in trouble and couldn't contact me. Maybe she's dead in a ditch somewhere and I'm being cruel and suspicious for no reason. But deep down, I already know the truth. The truth I've been avoiding for weeks, maybe months. The truth that explains every perfectly timed crisis, every grateful tear, every gentle touch that came right after I opened my wallet. I was never her family. I was her job. On Friday, I cancel the card and open a new account. The bank clerk, a polite young man who speaks excellent English, walks me through the process with professional sympathy. Fraud is becoming more common, he says, not unkindly, especially targeting foreign residents. We see this unfortunately often. Do you know? I stop myself. What am I going to ask? Do you know Duang Jai? Do you know if she's done this before? Do you know how many other lonely old men she's charmed and abandoned? Sir? Nothing. Thank you for your help. That weekend, I drive to her village. I don't know what I expect to find. Maybe her, living in some shack with a sick mother and a family full of genuine crises. Maybe evidence that I was wrong, that something terrible happened to keep her away. Instead, I find Mrs. Chanpen, the village headwoman, who listens to my halting Thai and broken-hearted English with the patience of someone who's had this conversation before. Duang Jai, she nods. Yes, I know her. She go to Bangkok maybe 1 month ago. Work in hotel there, I think. Hotel? Or maybe restaurant. She no tell anyone exactly where. Just pack bags one day and go south. Say she find better job. Did she say anything about an American man? Someone she was working for? Mrs. Chanpen's expression shifts slightly, becomes more guarded. You the American man? Yes. She sighs deeply. like she's deciding how much truth one person can handle. Duang Jai, very smart girl, very good at making people trust her, but she always leave when situation become complicated. How? When people start asking too many questions. When people want more than she willing to give. She pauses, studying my face. She take money from you? I nod, suddenly unable to speak. Sorry, she says, and her sympathy sounds genuine. Duangjai, not bad person, just survival person. She do what she must do to take care of herself. Many girls like this now. Hard life make people do hard things. I drive back to Chiang Rai with her words echoing in my head. Survival person. As if love and money are just tools for staying alive. As if kindness and cruelty are just different strategies for the same game. That night, I sit in my garden holding the framed photo from my birthday. We look so happy in it, so genuine. She's looking at me like I'm interesting, like I matter, like my stories about orchids and Minnesota libraries are worth hearing. But now I can see what I missed before. The slight distance in her smile. The way her eyes don't quite match the warmth in her voice. The practiced perfection of her attention, like she's following a script she's rehearsed with other lonely men in other gardens. I should throw the photo away. I should burn it and forget she ever existed. But instead, I put it in my desk drawer, underneath my passport and other important documents. Evidence of my stupidity. Proof that even at 71, I can still be foolish enough to mistake business for love. The orchids keep blooming, indifferent to human heartbreak. The birds keep singing their sharp, foreign songs. But it's different now, heavier. The silence isn't peaceful anymore, it's just empty. And in that emptiness, I finally understand the difference between choosing to be alone and having no choice at all. 2 weeks after the ATM revelation, I'm at the morning market buying vegetables I don't really want when I hear someone speaking English with an Australian accent. The voice is complaining loudly about the price of mangoes, and something about the frustration in it sounds familiar. Kindred. I turn around and see a man about my age, maybe younger, with the kind of sunburned skin that screams long-time expat. He's arguing with a vendor in broken Thai, waving his hands in exasperation. "Excuse me," I find myself saying. "You're Australian?" He turns to look at me, taking in my obvious foreignness with relief. "Too right, mate. Greg Morrison from Perth, and you're American, I'd guess." "Clinton. From Minnesota. You been in Chiang Rai long?" 3 years now." "Well, was 3 years. Heading back to Perth next month." His expression darkens. "Thailand got a bit too expensive for my liking, if you know what I mean." Something in the way he says, it makes my stomach drop. "Expensive how?" Greg studies my face for a moment, like he's deciding whether I can be trusted with the truth. "You hiring local help? Housekeepers? Gardeners? That sort of thing?" "I did, for about 6 months. Let me guess. Sweet young Thai woman, hardworking, always had family problems that needed cash to solve." The world goes very quiet around us. Even the market noise seems to fade as I stare at this stranger who just described my last 8 months in perfect detail. "Duang Jai," I say. "Bloody hell." Greg's face goes pale under his sunburn. "She got you too, didn't she?" We end up at a coffee shop on the edge of the market. 2 broken men sharing the kind of story that sounds like fiction until you're living it. Greg orders us both iced coffee with too much sugar, and for the next hour I listen to my own experience told through someone else's voice. "Started just like yours," Greg says, stirring his coffee methodically. "Hired her to clean the house once a week. Professional at first, then friendly. Before I knew it, she was staying for dinner, telling me about her family, making me feel like I mattered to someone in this country." "How long?" 8 months, maybe 9. Hard to say exactly when it shifted from housework to, whatever you want to call it, emotional manipulation, I suppose. "She gave you the family speech too?" Greg laughs, but there's no humor in it. "Called me family, yeah. Said I was the only man who ever treated her with respect. Made me feel like some kind of hero, saving her from all the awful Thai men who didn't appreciate her." "And the money?" "Started small. Medicine for her mum, school fees for her niece. Always urgent, always desperate. And I was flush enough that a few thousand baht here and there didn't seem like much." He takes a long sip of coffee. "Until it was." "How much?" $23,000 all told. Took it slow, methodical. Never enough at once to make me suspicious, but steady, like she was following a playbook. My coffee tastes like ash. 23,000. Almost twice what she took from me. Either she got better at it over time, or Greg was an easier mark. When did you figure it out? When she disappeared for 3 weeks, same as yours probably. Came back with some story about her brother being in a motorcycle accident in Bangkok, needed money for surgery. Asked for 10,000 baht in cash, right there on the spot. Greg's hands clench around his coffee cup. Something about the way she asked, so confident I'd say yes, made me suspicious. Drove to her village that weekend. And? Village headwoman told me the same thing she probably told you. Duang Jai had gone south for work, hadn't mentioned any brother or any accident. When I pressed for details, the woman got this look on her face, like she was tired of having this conversation. She's done this before. Many times, mate. Many times. Greg pulls out his phone and shows me a photo. It's Duang Jai, but not the way I remember her. In this picture, she's laughing with a white-haired European man. Maybe German or Dutch, both of them holding drinks at what looks like a resort. Found this on Facebook. Posted 8 months ago. Who's the man? Heinrich something. German retiree. Posted about his wonderful Thai girlfriend right up until the post stopped abruptly 6 months ago. Greg scrolls through more photos. There's others. Different men, different countries, but always the same pattern. Sweet romance for a few months, then radio silence. I stare at the photos, trying to reconcile the woman I thought I knew with this. What? Professional con artist? Serial seducer of lonely expats? Survival person? As Mrs. Chanpin had put it. How many others do you think there are? In Chiang Rai alone? At least a dozen, probably more. We're perfect targets, aren't we? Older Western men living alone, plenty of money, desperate for connection. She probably has a whole circuit she works. The cruelty of it hits me like a physical blow. Not just the money, though that stings, but the calculated nature of it. The way she studied my loneliness and used it against me. The way she turned my desperate need for family into a business transaction. The worst part, Greg continues, is how good she is at it. I mean, even knowing what I know now, part of me still wonders if maybe some of it was real. Maybe she did care about me, at least a little bit. Yeah, I whisper. I know exactly what you mean. We sit in silence for a while, two fools processing the magnitude of our foolishness. Around us, the market continues its daily rhythm, people buying and selling, living their lives, completely unaware that two hearts are breaking over iced coffee and shared stupidity. You reporting it to the police? Greg asks finally. Are you? Nah. What's the point? She didn't technically steal anything. I gave her the money willingly. And besides, he shrugs. Pride, I suppose. Don't fancy explaining to a room full of Thai police officers how a 70-year-old man got taken in by a pretty face and a sob story. Same here. Besides, she'll move on to the next city soon enough. Chiang Mai maybe, or down to the islands. Always fresh targets for someone with her skills. I think about that. Duang Jai in another city, charming another lonely man, spinning the same stories about sick mothers and struggling families. Using the same gentle touches and grateful tears that made me feel so special. Following the same playbook that worked so well on Greg and Heinrich and who knows how many others. Do you hate her? I ask. Greg considers this seriously. I should. Christ knows she deserves it. But mostly I just feel empty. Like she took something more valuable than the money. Something I can't get back. Trust. Yeah. Trust in my own judgment. Trust that people might actually like me for who I am instead of what I have. He finishes his coffee and stands to leave. Good luck, mate. Hope Thailand treats you better from here on out. As I watch him walk away, probably toward a one-way ticket back to Perth, I realize he's given me something more valuable than shared misery. He's given me perspective. I'm not special. I wasn't singled out for particularly cruel treatment. I was just one stop on a well-traveled route, one mark in a long line of marks. Somehow, that makes it easier to bear. Not better, but easier. At least I know I wasn't uniquely stupid. I was just human, lonely and hopeful and desperate to matter to someone. And in a world full of people who make their living off those exact vulnerabilities, I never stood a chance. 3 months have passed since Duang Jai disappeared with my money and my trust. 3 months of quiet mornings in my garden, of learning to live with the particular silence that comes after betrayal. The orchids still bloom, indifferent to human heartbreak, and gradually, I'm learning to find peace in their consistency. I've hired a new housekeeper. Mrs. Cantana is 63, has 5 grandchildren, and speaks exactly 17 words of English. She arrives at 8 a.m. sharp every Tuesday, cleans with military efficiency, accepts her payment with a polite nod, and leaves by noon. We've never shared tea. She's never told me about her family's problems. She's never touched my hand or called me family. It's exactly what I should have wanted from the beginning. You look better, Mrs. Sriwan observes when she stops by to check on my tomatoes. More. How you say? Peaceful? Getting there, I reply, though peaceful isn't quite right. Resigned, maybe. Wiser, definitely. I've learned to recognize the difference between being alone by choice and being alone by circumstance, and somehow that makes all the difference. My new bank account sits safely protected by layers of security I never bothered with before. 2-factor authentication. Daily balance alerts. A monthly spending limit that can't be exceeded without physically visiting the bank. It feels like armor, necessary but heavy. I still keep Duang Jai's photo in my desk drawer, though I'm not sure why. Sometimes late at night when the house feels too quiet, I take it out and study her face, looking for clues I missed. Signs of deception hiding behind that gentle smile. Evidence of the calculation that must have been there all along. But mostly, I see a woman doing what she had to do to survive, and while I can't forgive the betrayal, I'm starting to understand it. Thailand is beautiful, but it's not easy for everyone. For a 32-year-old woman with limited education and no family money, men like me probably represent the closest thing to financial security available. I was never a person to her. I was an opportunity. Kun Clinton? Mrs. Cantana's voice interrupts my brooding. She's standing at the edge of the garden, pointing toward the gate where a young woman is hovering uncertainly. For one heart-stopping moment, I think it's Duang Jai. Same height, same delicate build, same hesitant posture. But as she steps closer, I can see the differences. This girl is younger, maybe 25, with shorter hair and a nervous energy that Duang Jai never had. Sawasdee ka, she says with a deep bow. My name's Siraporn. I hear you maybe need help with garden? I work very hard, very honest. The irony is so perfect it almost makes me laugh. Another young Thai woman, appearing at my gate with promises of honest work and hard labor, the cycle beginning again, or trying to. I don't need help with my garden, I say firmly. Thank you anyway. Oh. Her face falls with what looks like genuine disappointment. Maybe housework? I clean very good, cook Thai food if you like. I already have a housekeeper. Okay. Sorry to bother. She turns to leave, then pauses. Actually, my mother very sick right now. Need money for medicine. Maybe you help just a little bit? I pay back very soon, I promise. And there it is. The same opening gambit Duang Jai used, delivered with the same mix of desperation and hope. For a moment, I almost feel sorry for her. She's probably genuinely struggling, probably genuinely needs help. But I also know how this story ends. No, I say, not unkindly but firmly. I'm sorry, but no. Her expression shifts almost imperceptibly. The hope dims, replaced by something harder, more calculating, like she's reassessing her approach, wondering if she misjudged her target. You sure? Very little money, just for medicine. I'm sure. She nods and walks away, but not before glancing back at my house with the kind of appraisal that has nothing to do with architecture. I watch her disappear down the street, probably heading to the next foreign retiree's house, armed with the same story and the same desperate smile. Mrs. Cantana, who witnessed the entire exchange, shakes her head with obvious disapproval. Young girls now, she mutters in Thai that I've learned enough to understand. Always looking for easy money from foreign men. Not all of them, I say in my halting Thai, though I'm not sure I believe it anymore. Maybe not all, she concedes. But enough to be careful. That evening, I sit in my garden with a book and a glass of wine, watching the sun set over Chiang Rai. The air is warm and still, filled with the sounds of life continuing around me. Children playing in the street. Vendors calling out their wares. The distant hum of traffic and commerce and human existence carrying on regardless of my small heartbreak. For the first time in months, I feel something approaching contentment. Not happiness, exactly, but a kind of peace that comes from accepting limitations. I'm 71 years old, living alone in a foreign country, and that's probably how I'll die. There won't be any great romance or found family or fairy tale ending to my story. Just me and my books and my orchids and the quiet satisfaction of days lived simply. And you know what? That's enough. It has to be. The ATM is closed, metaphorically speaking. My heart is closed too, at least the parts that made me vulnerable to someone like Duang Jai. I'll keep living here, keep tending my garden, keep finding small joys in small things. But I'll do it with my eyes open now, my trust carefully rationed, my money safely locked away from anyone who thinks loneliness is the same thing as stupidity. The photo in my desk drawer will stay there, a reminder of lessons learned and prices paid. Not a punishment, but a reality check. Evidence that even at my age I can still be taught. That survival isn't just for young Thai women making hard choices. Sometimes it's for old American men learning to live with the consequences of their choices too. Tomorrow Mrs. Cantana will come and clean my house with her efficient, professional detachment. I'll water my orchids and read my books and maybe walk to the market for vegetables I'll cook myself. It won't be exciting or romantic or particularly meaningful to anyone but me, but it will be real. And after months of living in someone else's carefully constructed fantasy, real feels like the greatest luxury of all. The ATM is closed, but my life is still open. Smaller now, more careful, but still mine. And that's more than enough for whatever time I have left. I wake early the next morning and tend to my orchids as the sun rises over Chiang Rai. The purple and white blooms catch the golden light, beautiful and solitary and perfectly content in their careful isolation. Just like me, I suppose. We've both learned to bloom where we're planted, to find beauty in simplicity, to survive on what we have instead of what we hoped for. The quiet here isn't the peaceful silence I thought I wanted when I first arrived. It's heavier now, weighted with experience and loss and hard-earned wisdom. But it's honest quiet. Real quiet. The kind that comes not from avoiding life's complications, but from surviving them. And in the end, that's all any of us can do. Survive. Learn. Bloom where we're planted. Keep the ATM closed and the heart carefully guarded, but still open enough to find beauty in orchids and books and sunrises over foreign gardens. It's not the life I planned, but it's the life I have. And finally, after 71 years and one very expensive education in the difference between love and commerce, that feels like enough.